Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Tavis Leaf Glover, and today we're going to be comparing the magazine covers of Annie Leibovitz and Horst P. Horst. And I've covered Horst P. Horst in another video, so check that out when you can. But these are both talented photographers, and we'll see how the magazine covers stand up against each other. This first one, we can see the stark difference between that red outfit versus this other checkered type of scenario here. But when we're comparing the photos, I'll try and keep this based off of composition techniques and not my own personal taste. So right here we have this very nice outfit, but we'll see something that's starkly different between these two magazine covers. There's a lot more text in today's magazine covers than there was back then. Back then they kept it more simple rather than just splash with all this typography. And a lot of the typography we'll see doesn't have very good figure ground relationships, so I'll point that out as we go. But if we're comparing the two images, they're both great images. Nice figure ground relationship on both. The simple background in each of them is nice. We've got the lighting, the side lighting on both of them. I would say the Annie Leibovitz one would win this. Got a lot of nice arabesque in the hat, and then one coming down the body of the model here. Just a lot of nice movement within that photo. And the typography, if we look at the typography, we have to have typography that is readable. And a lot of this text is hard to read. You gotta look really close and read it slowly to understand what's going on, because the lettering is so thin in certain areas. They would probably be better using bolder text, but I know this is just kind of the style of magazine. They usually use that thin to thick line. So a lot of this can come down to artistic style, which is fine, but you should still pay attention to design techniques and readability. You don't want your audience, your viewer, to struggle to read the magazine cover. You need to have everything readable. So as we compare these, we're gonna mark Annie Leibovitz with red and then Horst P. Horst with blue, and we'll see who wins at the end. So I'm going to mark this layer with red, because I think Annie's photo and the typography is not so bad. You can still read some of it, but I mean, it is kind of hard to read. This one doesn't have any typography to judge except for the title up there. So let's move on to the next one. These are two great images. Both have large hats, and I'll try and compare photos that have similar props or poses. It's not always possible, but I'll try. And if we look at the background, we have nice figure ground relationship. Nice figure ground relationship in this one. It's a little bit confused with these shapes in the background, the reflection, and we can't really tell if what is going on there on her shoulder. If we look closer, if it is a reflection, there would be white here, but it looks like it's maybe a cutout or some type of composite. Still nice, it's creative. And then this one, we can definitely see the typography errors. If we zoom out, say we see this on the magazine rack, we can't really understand what's going on down here because the lettering is light and it's on a light background, and they don't darken the background at all to help the viewer read it better. Same with this area here, it's hard to read. And then the word plus, it's a little bit darker on the dark background. You can read it nicely on the light background, but then when it gets on the darker background, it's kind of lost. So when we zoom out, it's a little bit hard to read some of this lettering. They could have done this a little bit better. I'm not sure why they drown the cover with so much text when it could be simplified, you know? Just the only thing I can think of is that it's easily recognized as a fashion magazine because of all this jumbled lettering that we see all the time. It's just really consistent. It's not a consistently good thing because we can't read it, but it's consistent, so it's part of their artistic style. Just like Annie Leibovitz will cut off feet and hands, and that just is seen so much that it becomes part of her artistic style. So this one, the left side, it looks a little weak. The typography is really weak. This is just like a straight black background. The tear is creative right here, this tear, but the lettering, if you know Gestalt psychology and know the law of proximity, the closer things are together, the more they start to relate to each other. These words here are really far apart from each other if you think about it. So you could get a little bit closer to bring them closer together to unify that title there. And then over here, you could probably get more creative as well. Maybe echo the shape of her hat in these bullet points instead of just having simple dots. And then the background could have some type of texture just to add more interest to that area. So I adjusted that just to show you what that could look like if you got a little bit more creative and brought these words together, added more texture, echoed the shape of this hat. Just adds a little bit more creativity to the cover. Not saying that's perfect either, it's just something to think about and makes it more professional looking. So this one, we'll make that a tie. We'll just keep that even. I like both of them. I think they both have similar composition pros and cons, so we'll just keep that even. Right here we see they both have a triangular enclosure being formed out of the dress and then the body. One stands out to me. This one here by Horst is definitely more simplified. They both have the reddish color, but this one's just more stark. She has some figure ground relationship issues with the head. This G in the background is coinciding with her head and then the collar of her dress. So I know they have to do that, and they usually do that with the lettering, but it does interfere with the visual clarity of her head, and you can see that when you squint. Maybe if she was turned sideways and given us an aspect of view of her face, that would be a little bit better. And then the background's clear, nice figure ground relationship. I like the zigzag formation, these strong dominant diagonals in that dress. This one has a nice arabesque going up the dress, very nice movement there. The lighting in the image looks a little flat. It's not really interesting. A lot of light back here, not a lot of light on her, so it's just bringing attention to that background. And we have all this text here. A lot of it's not readable, like this area here. It's a light lettering on a light background. Same with here, it just kind of clips off from light to dark. Hard to read there and there. So they would do better to have just maybe dark text here in this light area and then light text in this dark area here, or just reduce some of the text. We don't really need to read every single thing that's in the magazine. Create a nice cover, and then it entices the person to look further. So we'll give this one to Horst P. Horst. Okay, this next one, both great images, but right off the bat you can tell, if you squint, you can see which one's got better visual clarity, and it's the Horst P. Horst one. Nice figure ground relationship. Similar pose in both, but this one you can definitely read the text better. The head coinciding with the lettering is not too bad. You can definitely tell they're separate. It's not creating some weird illusion like the last one. You can read this text pretty well. You can see what's going on in the scene. All this here, she's kind of camouflage. This pattern's blending in with the background pattern, and all you see is her head basically and her hands. Everything else is dark and there's low contrast. You can't really tell what's going on. This lettering here is a little bit hard to read because of that pattern. It goes from light to dark, so they're not doing a good job with figure ground relationship in a lot of this, and that's normal. It's like their artistic style, but it should be something to look at perhaps if they're wanting the viewer to be able to read it better. It's better than the last magazine cover, but it's still not as clean and simple like this one. So we'll give this one to Horst P. Horst. Also, the red in her outfit definitely draws our attention more than this dark outfit here. Red's definitely a color that grabs our attention, just like these two are in red. Kind of a similar pose. This one definitely screams at us. Very beautiful dress, nice look. The one eye being covered creates a little bit of mystery there. This one's a nice cover as well. It's actually like a photo of someone's magazine. That's why it's kind of grayed out here. I didn't want the background to influence the color at all, but this is very simple. The typography is easy to read. It just looks a little bit generic. This square right here looks pretty generic. This is excessive lettering. It's just like swallowing up this beautiful image. I wish they just didn't even include any of this text. You can see the light text on the light background. It's going halfway over her body. It's kissing the body here. I'll show you guys examples of good typography on magazine covers and how you can space everything evenly, almost like an Apple ad or something. Everything's spaced evenly, everything's organized evenly around. There's not a lot of overlap like this area here. A lot of just like nasty overlapping right here, like cut back coincides right on the edge of her arm there. Same with this area here. I went to school for graphic design, so I noticed probably a little bit more than normal, and it's really bad typography. It's not easy to create quick, fast designs and create beautiful typography really quick like they might have to do, but I'm just saying it could be a lot better even if you are being quick at it. So this one, that's a toss-up. I don't know, I really like this image. Nice arabesque going through it. Great figure ground relationship on both. Nice pose in this one. I would say that's a tie also. If it weren't for all this text, I would give it to Annie Leibovitz. But as far as covers go, they're both kind of equal if we're talking composition techniques. Now this one, I really like both of these. Annie Leibovitz definitely has a really great pose here with Michael Jackson. Nice figure ground relationship. Simple lettering. Some of the lettering is being lost in his socks here. The light yellow and then the white of the socks. You can see if you squint, you lose it. You lose some of that lettering. If you squint, I'm even zooming up, I should be able to read what's going on here, but I can't. Stuff is missing here. Part of Scrooge when you squint. Right over here, Diana is missing. So it's really hard to read even when you're squinting and you're zoomed up. That's just showing you how bad the figure grind relationship is. This one's really simple, really awesome pose, nice dominant diagonals there. And then you see the poses within the words as well. That's super creative. I would like to call this a tie, but this one's definitely way more creative, and I think that's lacking in a lot of magazine covers these days, is the creativity, and we should reward creativity. It's a nice pose. It's just really it's got some issues with the figure grind relationship of the lettering, the words, hard to read. I do like the wind in that, but I think the creativity goes to this one mainly because of the lettering up here. Pretty creative and simple. But if you like this kind of stuff, check out the links in the description below. I make things for artists to help them surpass their plateau and reach the master level, so check that out when you can. This one, really, I tried to find 2 creative magazine covers, but you can tell this one is definitely jumbled with a lot of text, a lot of subjects, and they just drown all these great photos with text, and it's sad because they could have just a really great image and simplify it and make an impact with this strong image rather than just a bunch of jumbled text. I'm definitely going to give this one to Horse P. Horse. It's a clear, obvious winner, but I want to point out some things with this Annie Leibovitz one. I like how they added some of the flowers over the words. That's creative, that's nice. It's unifying the words with the background. This area is nice. She's covering the lettering there. This is a nice photo. This text, you could easily darken the text behind here, just make it a darker green and not totally opaque, just kind of like reduce the opacity so there's kind of clear but darker. That would be easy to read. This here, all this light lettering on the light background is hard to read. Even this could stay in there. But another issue with this image is all of these Photoshop dogs. You can tell if you look closer that these dogs are cut out of another photo and then stitched into the photo, just because it's really clean around here and doesn't really look like this photo blends with that background very well. Same with this one. And then this one, it's hard to tell right here. It looks realistic. And then the fur right here looks like it could be there. But these are definitely photoshopped in. So something to keep in mind if you're adding lettering to your photos, anything like that, always pay attention to your design techniques, especially figure grind relationship. And that's the most important technique you should understand is figure grind relationship. Let's move on to the next one. These are both great photos. I think one is clearly more creative than the other. Now let's look at the typography. Now this area here where it's almost kissing, that's creating visual tension. You either want it to overlap a nice amount or to not kiss at all. Right here it's almost kissing. It's kind of like the Michelangelo painting where they're almost touching fingers. So it's creating the visual tension but in a bad way. And it's a simple magazine cover. I'm getting really nitpicky, but I'm just pointing out certain things so you can watch for those. And it crosses over to your art too. You don't want separate shapes almost touching like this. You want it to overlap properly, or you don't want it to be too close. So they could have reduced the size of this text just a little bit or positioned this in a different way, so I didn't do that. And then also right here, you got to pay attention to the background. So like this G is kissing this shape in the background right here. All this area here is just like barely hanging off the background. And then this D is hanging off and the E is kissing the shape of her arm. So again, should clearly overlap, or it can just be clean and not overlap at all. And right here, you can see some of the text where it's lighter on her dress. It's being lost a little bit. Thankfully, the lettering is big enough so we don't have to struggle too hard to read it. But overall, good image, nice background, just some issues with the lettering as usual. This one's really simple, got clear lettering. It's just a little bit generic, and that's just because of how they did it back then, just like how we do it now. It's generic looking here, and it's confusing and hard to read nowadays. So what's a better image? According to composition techniques, I would give it to this one, Horse P. Horse, because it's more creative. Got the polka dots unifying with the outfit and the background. Nice lighting. This is simple lighting, simple pose. Doesn't look like they did much with her hair or makeup or anything like that. Really pretty dress. The background's simple. It's just a little bit more simple than this one, and creativity should be encouraged. So we'll give that one to Horse P. Horse. All right, that's the last one, and then we'll look at some interesting magazine covers to show you the difference between what we just saw and then what could be pushed even further to make the cover more beautiful. So here we have two really good images. I really love this one. It's nice counterpart with the model and then the background, the Statue of Liberty. Beautiful arabesque going through her dress here. Nice pose, really beautiful lighting. Nothing to complain about this photo. The typography here is not too bad. The background is darker than the lettering, so you can read that easily. Right here we get a little bit confused because of the lettering they chose. They always choose this thin to thick lettering, which is part of their artistic style, which is fine. And then this is easy to read here. This one over here is creative, simple, three models posing together. Got kind of like an arabesque coming around here. This woman's arm and her hand coming down to this woman. Nice figure-ground relationship. The lighting's okay. It's just coming straight down onto them. So it's creating like a flat lighting, almost like a on the camera flash, that dark outline around them. And the lettering is minimal, simplified. Title's really creative. This one's a tie also. I would say both of them are really good images. I think this image would win overall compared to this one, but I think the typography over the dress kind of ruins that arabesque within the dress, kind of ruins a lot with that photo. It's almost like they're competing what's more beautiful. I would say the dress and the background and the photo is more beautiful, and you can never create typography that could top the beauty in this photo, but it's like they want to compete with their typography or the photo, and the photo is lacking because of their typography. So that's what I'm seeing in the composition. So that's those two. We'll give this one a tie. So add them up, and it looks like Horse P. Horse is definitely the winner when compared to Annie Leibovitz. So good job, Horst. And he's an old school photographer, keeps it simple, keeps it creative, doesn't have to rely on typography to sell the magazine. He just uses stark imagery overall and gets the win. Okay, so that should be something interesting. I wish Vogue magazine, Vanity Fair would see this video, because I would love to see more creative magazine covers like Horse P. Horse created. All right, so now let's look at some other covers compared to the Annie Leibovitz, and we'll see a stark difference between the typography that they're using in these creative covers as opposed to Annie Leibovitz, and to show you that it can be different with just minor changes in the typography. You can have a very stark image as well as readable typography. So this one is definitely more stark image. I love this photo that Annie Leibovitz has created, but if you're comparing readability and stark imagery, this one's definitely standing out. It's funny, it's interesting, it's different. You can read all of the text because it's a dark figure on a light background. Up here we have kissing shapes. The stress vaccine is kissing the shape of that wired text, so they could have lifted that title up just a little bit more so they're not kissing. But other than that, I would say this is definitely a better composition and magazine cover overall. This one's really creative, reminds me of an Irving Penn photo that he did, a black and white image. And it's probably photoshopped, you know, it's not like one image all at once. It's probably photoshopped this way, but it's definitely more creative than this one. The typography is really hard to read in this bottom area. That one's really, really horrible, but that's normal for Vogue and Vanity Fair. Really tough to read here. Should not even include it because you can't even read it. What's the point? Over here, it's a little bit tough to read the white lettering, but I just want to show you guys how creative magazine covers could be in that one. This one, definitely, you can tell the difference between the lettering. They have the lettering around the title and then near the edges, so it keeps the image free. Just really engaging imagery, and then the title and the typography is around this area, and it just keeps it nice and clean, keeps it separated and unified. It's a way cleaner way to add typography and keep the imagery clean. This one too, National Geographic, super simple, but you can read every single word in this cover. Okay, the light lettering on the dark background, easy to read, and then stark imagery. This one's got those issues with the lettering down here, but you can see you can keep it simple and people will still grab the magazine, lift it up and read it. Another example of keeping the typography around the title and then letting the image speak 1,000 words. It's another great one, kind of like similar floral camouflagey type backgrounds, but one is definitely going to be standing out more than the other. They keep the typography around the title again, and they're letting the image speak 1,000 words in this one, Just beautiful background, and it's tying into the foreground and this man in the middle. They're using colors much better than this one. If we're still speaking creativity, this is definitely more creative. And look how simple, it's just a really crazy image, a few words on there, but someone's gonna pick that up and read it and see what the heck it's all about, right? So it's just a way better way to capture the viewer, make them grab your magazine rather than all this typography here. This one's definitely stark imagery as well. Just a really crazy image. And I'll show you the typography in this one compared to the left image with Vogue. See how they're keeping the space from the typography next to the photo, keeping that free. Like I was saying, you don't want to create it with visual tension or overlap and confuse the words. You want to have nice figure ground relationship, but they're creating this diagonal effect in the lettering so it's not touching her neck in the image in the background. It's just really clean and you can read it all. Same with over here. So that's a nice stark imagery, nice title, and you can read all the words. It's perfect magazine cover example. This one too, getting creative with the V magazine. So they're editing out some of the typography so her face comes into the V. Just more creativity in some of these compared to the typical Vanity Fair generic typography look. Over here we can see that the lettering is easy to read except for down here where it hits the shadow of her arm. So not too bad, but they could have moved that differently, maybe up in this pocket here and had everything readable. But that's it for today. We have a clear winner of Horse P. Horse versus Annie Leibovitz, and I hope that helps you guys work with figure ground relationship a little bit more, look for distractions, visual tension, use your negative space creatively, think outside of the box rather than just a simple image, maybe try different poses and things like that. Leave a comment below if you want to see any other artists compared or if you have any other artists you want me to dig into. I'll see what I can do. But take care, guys.